Let's get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gullah Business of Charleston. My name is Nicole Pringle, and I'm the president. And we also have Tiffany Savage here. And we have a special guest here, Miss Renee Fleuranges-Valdes. She's a fiber art artist, and we're going to learn all about her artwork, her pieces, and we're going to learn about the world of fiber art because I kind of knew a little bit about it, but not as much. So we're going to learn all about that today. And thank you again for coming on. I can't wait to learn about fiber art. And just with the first question, how did you get started?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It is actually wonderful to have the opportunity to share my story because, as you said, fiber art is something that most people don't think of. They think of it as craft, go to arts fairs, craft fairs. They don't think of it as fine art. So I love to have the opportunity to share the story and help people learn to appreciate it. So I started with fabric very young, but not quilting. I have no quilters in my family. My mom sewed, my aunt sewed, and I spent my Saturday mornings helping my aunt. She was a peacemaker in the garment industry in Manhattan, and I would sit on the floor by her feet, and I'd cut the threads off of the slips and nightgowns, what have you, that she would make. And I got to take home any extra fabric. So there meant my dolls had clothes. And also because I was the youngest of 4 girls, I was tired of hand-me-downs. So I learned to sew. And I started making all my own clothes. My sisters and I chuckle because your mom, liked to dress everybody the same. So it didn't matter. By the time it got to me, no matter what season, somebody had worn that size before me. Well, I didn't like not having my individuality. I was sort of the rogue child. And so I learned to sew. I started making all my own clothes, went away to college, even made my own. I remember my graduation suit to wear under my cap and gown. Made my own walking coat. I went to school in upstate New York, a wool walking coat, because I wanted to be different. Also, I'm on the rather large size. You couldn't find plus size things in stores back then. So I learned to sew as a necessity. Sewing has always been a part of the family, but not quilting. High school came around. I had a friend's mother who quilted. I loved the quilts that she had on her beds and on her walls, but she was a traditional quilter. She promised to teach me one day, and unfortunately, she passed away before that happened. So when she passed, I was helping my girlfriend clean her mom's house, and one day she handed me this box and she said, "You always wanted to learn how to quilt. Mom was ready and waiting. So here, these are yours." And the box sat in my house for a while until one day I was too stressed from work and I needed an outlet. Corporate America would do that, and I took a quilting class, and I haven't looked back since.
So we were talking about earlier, you mentioned it briefly, but I want to know more about why fiber art is not really accepted in the art world because it has so much like cultural significance. Why is it not being accepted? What's been the hurdles and the challenges for people now to recognize it?
Well, you got to remember, fine art for so long was defined as a painting, right? Oils, acrylics, watercolors. And it was a man's job, right? Men were the painters. Think about, all of your well-known artists, painters back in history. Cloth was always women's work, right? We made the bedding, we made the clothes, we made the drapes. It wasn't really thought about as fine art. It was thought about as necessity. These were the utilitarian pieces that a family needed to survive. And when you look at the African American culture, right, we didn't go to the fabric store and buy fabric. We went and took down the old curtains, the old clothes, the old sheeting, and we made bed quilts because that's what we did. So for generations, it wasn't fiber art. Well, first of all, it was not, quilting was all utilitarian quilts. Like I said, on your beds, wrap up as you watch television, lay it on the grass, a Sunday church picnic, right? That's what quilting was. And it wasn't until probably the early 70s when Faith Ringgold, and if you don't know that name, look it up. Unfortunately, she has just passed. But Faith Ringgold, who wanted to study in the world of art in college and was told no, because she was a female, number one, and she was a Black female, number two. But it wasn't until Faith really broke the mold and started taking her paintings and turning it into fiber art. So instead of using paint as a medium, she used fabric. So she broke the mold. Again, it was women's work, so it was looked at as craft work. It was hobby work. It was folklore. It wasn't fine art. And I will tell you that still today, that's a hard world to crack into. But another name, if you don't know her, Bisa Butler. Bisa, B-I-S-A, Butler. Fabulous young African-American fiber artist in the Smithsonian, in the Portrait Gallery. She takes Black and white photos and turns them into wonderful works of art with no painting, all fiber, all different types of fiber. And she sort of has taken the world for a storm in the last 5 to 6 years. She's been on the cover of Vogue. She's been on the cover of Essence. She's been on the cover of Times, New Yorker, right? And so finally, the fine art world is realizing that, oh, there's something here. I'm just happy that I live in that time, that I have Faith and I have Bisa to thank, to actually helping to crack that hurdle.
For someone that might not know, can you explain what fiber art is?
Sure. It comes from the world of quilting. So in the quilting world, you take fabric and you cut it up, squares, triangles, and you make quilts. And a quilt is defined by taking a top, a bottom, and a middle layer, and sewing those 3 layers together. So you have what we call the piecing to make the top. You have your warm layer, your batting, right? And then you have the bottom layer, and many times muslin or a sheet, right? And the quilting part is stitching those 3 layers together to create something that can be used. Fiber art has stemmed from that because a fiber artist takes the same materials, cotton, silk, velvet, whatever they want to work in, they cut it up, but they make a picture instead of a utilitarian quilt. My quilts hang on the walls. They're not meant to be used and washed and wrapped in and laid on. They're meant to be things to adorn the walls. So we go through the same process of designing the top, cutting the top, piecing the top, and then sandwiching them, sandwiching them together, top layer, warm layer still. That's what gives it the texture. And then the backing. And so you have the 3 layers together. And so fiber art is a quilted piece to hang on the wall.
That leads me to this question. Is that some of your pieces right behind you that's hanging?
This is my design wall. So this is where I work. And so these pieces are in process. Right?
Okay.
So I usually start with a central figure or an image, whether it's a person, a tree, a body of water. I do representational art. And so that is usually what spurs me on, whether it's something I've seen in a dream, a movement of a dancer. Sometimes it could even be, I saw someone's hair represented one way and I want to use that in a character. Sometimes I'll sketch and have no clue what I'm going to do with it. And they come to life on the design wall. And most of the time, you'll see more than one piece back there, because once I have the central figure, I then have to put them in scenes, and I have to, because I tell stories with my work. So, they'll start out as the figure. So in here, probably easier to see this one. There's a dancer. These two pieces will become part of my Dream Big series. When Misty Copeland was named the first African-American prima ballerina, or actually they call it principal ballerina for the American Ballet Theater, I was inspired I like to do dances, so I wanted to do a piece. And it just so happened to coincide with Man's 50th anniversary of Man's first step on the moon, right? Which for the American people was a big dream, right? For Misty Copeland as a little girl, a woman of color, to see herself as a principal ballerina, she thought that would never happen. And so another big dream. So I developed this Big Dream series because it happened. And as I said, I'm inspired by life. So they happened at the same time. And I did this series in, I think it was 2014 or 2015. And they were a huge success. But I couldn't do any more. They didn't talk to me anymore. The piece has to talk to me. And now these are actually parts of a commission work for one of my collectors. She's been bugging me to bring my Dream Big series back. And so they're back on the wall. And this one, also part of that series, I just finished. And I finished it for the Global Art Fair. You may have, if you went to the Global Art Fair in North Charleston during Art Fest, this hung there. You can see I've started doing some 3D elements, so the dress is really off the background. And you can see, this now has the stitching, so that's the quilting part, right? I'm really big into bling. Can you see the sparkles?
That sounds like me. I like everything blinged out.
You see her jewelry.
Nice.
All right, so this is where I started, and it has to talk to me. Sometimes I have pieces that I have to fold up because they're no longer speaking to me, and they'll go away until they talk to me and tell me what they want next. But yeah, these are some of those pieces. This is going to be a tribute to our songbirds, our soulful songbirds, right? The divas who decided that this was their music. If you remember, we as African Americans weren't Black back then, weren't able to sing in all the nightclubs, right? They sort of controlled what we sung, how we sung it. And there were a few, Nina Simone, Aretha Franklin, right, who sort of took that and said, no, it's my way or no way. And so this piece will be a tribute to them.
Is your artwork I guess what I want to say is it a way of therapy for you? Is it like a way of like relaxation for you?
Yes. As I said, I was working, and actually it was three of us sitting around in the office one night about 7:30, while we're still in the office, right? And we were complaining the job had just gotten so overwhelming. And we decided to do something. So I said, I have an idea. Let's take a quilt class to, something for us to make us feel better, release the stress. Well, three of us signed up, two took the class. I'm the one who is still quilting. And that was in the year 2000. Wow. It has been a fabulous stress reliever. While I was still working, I retired in 2019, right before I moved here to South Carolina. And I spent many nights, put the kids to bed, my husband's in bed, the kitchen is clean, the living room is reset. And I just needed to do something for me. So at the time, I go into my basement in New York and pull out the fabric. Sometimes just petting the fabric was enough And other times it was, no, I had to, get something out. It is by far, to me, the best way to cope with my emotions. I have a piece I made when my mom had to be put into a assisted living area. She had Alzheimer's, and so it's full of tears. I cried my way through that process with a piece. I have another piece when I had to make the decision to take my mom's breasts because with Alzheimer's, she had breast cancer and it was her fourth bout. And the doctor was like, at this point, it makes no sense to have her go through reconstruction and we need to take the breast. And so I have my tears through that one. So yeah, it is my therapy. Absolutely. I work through everything in life with my quilting.
You were saying something about petting the fabric. Is there certain fabrics you like to work with more than others, or how does that work when you start?
Yeah, I use primarily cottons, a little bit of silk. A lot of the dresses that I make on my, as I call them, instead of paper dolls, fiber dolls, will be out of silk, but mostly cotton. And for me, mostly batiks. And that's because of the techniques that I use. I'm an applique quilter, right? And I choose to do what most would call raw edge. And if you use the standard cotton, the weave of the cotton is too loose that it will fray on the edge. So the edges, I'll show you another piece, the edges would not be crisp, right? Instead of seeing a very, crisp line, you would see a lot of fraying here. So I use a lot of batik in my work, batik and hand dyes. And that's just because of the techniques I use. Oh, wait a minute. And here's the silk. So she has on silk. So yeah.
Yeah, that's me, just 50 pounds lighter. That's all.
I
Oh.
tried.
Pieces
Like
fall into the top.
yeah.
You can see yourself through the artwork. That's good.
Oh, well, hey, I've done my job because as a storytelling quilter, I want you to, see yourself, to relate to my piece, right? And that's why people buy it and take it home because, it talks to them.
I just like, because just like you said, you're pretty much depicting kind of like movement. And so I like that whole aspect. Even the one that you have behind you with the woman, she just poses, she's about to dance, and you can see the movement. So it plays off as a scene. And I like the way you flow, like pretty much the fabrics are coming off 3D, off like, especially the canvas that you showed us earlier that you competed with. And that's another question too. So you have this art form, you're doing this as therapy. What made you take a leap of faith to be like, okay, I'm gonna enter this into a competition, or I'm gonna show other people what I'm doing? Because to me, that'd be like a sensitive thing. Like, this is my artwork right here. I don't want everybody to see this quite yet. So
well, first of all, you're gonna laugh because the first piece in Dream Big, I don't own it anymore, but it's called Leap of Faith. So, so the words were perfect. And what made me take that leap of faith is my son. My son was like, "Ma, your work is gorgeous. Why you just have them all hanging around the house?" He says, "You should be out there showing them. I'm sure people will buy them." Who's going to buy my stuff? Let's be real. And he kept pushing me. He kept pushing me. And so, as quilters, there's a thing called quilting guilds, right? And it's now I can't even say a group of women because there are plenty male quilters. So it's a group of people who come together. A guild usually comes together in person once a month and they meet. And most guilds have shows. So during the year, you'll be, exposed to different techniques through workshops, other members' work, right? And they'll have classes, they'll have people come in to teach. And then once a year, they have a show. And so finally, I decided with my son's prodding to enter my a quilt. I remember that first one into the show, and I won a ribbon. And I was like, oh, really? And so I was like, well, thank you, Robert. And then someone wanted to buy that one. And I was like, no, I don't sell my stuff. No, thank you. I don't sell my stuff. But thank you for the interest. And my son kept prodding me. And he was like, Mom, why not sell it? That means they really like it. And I was like, nah, I don't know how to price it, you know. And then one day, I belonged to quite a few guilds in New York. And then one day, a gallery approached our guild, a local guild, was one of the smaller guilds, and about having the guild put on an exposition in the gallery. So that was sort of a safe step because anything that went into the gallery had to be sold. But I was going to be one of. It wasn't, you know, just Renee putting herself out there. It was Renee and the rest of the Pelham quilters. And so we did. And I'll never forget, I had 4 or 5 pieces. And the day that we dropped them off, the gallery owner said to me, I really like this piece, but I really can't hang it in the show. Why? And she said, the price is wrong. And I'm like, oh, see, I told you, you know, no one's going to pay what I think this thing is worth. I says, well, what do you mean it's wrong? I said, this is the first time I'm selling. So can you help me? And she says, well, it's way too low. Too low? And she said, yes, you're not asking for the value of the piece. So I said, so what should I price it at? And I was flabbergasted when she said, well, lo and behold, the show was open for 5 minutes and the piece sold. And
Wow.
it's like, oh, I guess my son is right. And so, boom, I put myself out there. And I had a hard time letting go of work. I did. But after a while, you realize that people connect. And since I don't do traditional quilts, I do, as you say, storytelling, representational quilting. It's nice when someone connects with something that you feel is important to you, right? That is also important to them. And that what's important to you speaks to somebody else. And a lot of times, my work is something that I had a hard time talking about. Like the color of my skin. My sisters, well, one in particular, used to tease me as a child that I was the milkman's baby because I was the lightest of the 4 of us, that daddy wasn't my daddy. And when I went into school, the other Blacks would tease me again because I was so light. So one of the pieces that I've done, I did called Shades of Misty. Again, Misty Copeland, it's the dancer. And I have 4 different shades. The women are all in the exact same position, in the exact same clothing, same fabric, same color, same style. And they are in 4 different, I have Barely Passing, High Yellow, Light Skinned, and Brown Girl. And when I first started talking about that piece, I would tear up because it was so emotional for me to talk about the fact that I was subjected to racism, not only from whites, even though there are plenty of whites in my extended family, but also from Blacks. So where did I fit in? Right? And I wanted people to know we come in all different shades. It doesn't have anything to do with who we are inside. Well, you don't know the amount of people who would come up to me when that quilt was on display, whether in a quilt competition or in a gallery, and say how much that piece really really affected them and how they connected to it. So I do put myself out there, but I am tickled pink when someone resonates with that story enough to want to take it home and Shades of Misty has been acquired and it's hanging in someone's home. And so it just says, I guess it's good to sort of tell your story.
That's so funny you said that, because when you put up the other picture, the other piece you had, I was like, that's me, just 50 pounds lighter. And I saw the dark complexion. I'm like, this is representing me, my chocolate skin. And I have a similar story like you was bringing up, and I was like, yeah, that's why I connected with that piece. I'm like, yeah, that's me. Because growing up in the 80s, we didn't really have any like shades like that. So I would have loved to seen that growing up, because when I was battling, oh, you're so dark and so black, to see me in different art pieces or toys, that would have been great growing up, dolls or any type of representation. So that's why when I saw that, I was like, yeah, that's me.
So you're gonna like this.
Oh yeah.
Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like that. I saw that. Oh yeah, I like that. I saw that.
All right. And this is me. This is my grandmother, and the one on the side in the gold is my sister. At least she tells me that's her, but it was inspired by one of my a picture. But I don't know if you can see it here. There's a little tattoo on her thigh. Hashtag. Can you read it?
Oh no, I can't see it.
I can't see her right now.
It's # BLM, Black Lives Matter.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Thunder, and as I call them, our thunder thighs, because we
That's
all have them in my
I feel like
family.
that's representation of me. Nikki would talk about the pigment, yes, the pigment representation, but these legs.
Uh-huh. I've done a whole series called Curvy Ladies. And that's exactly what it is, because we see dancers that look like this all the time. But what about the rest of us? So I did a whole series called Curvy Ladies. But they are curvy ladies who all have, and they all have someone who has inspired the piece. It's a series of 8, but they all have a characteristic that I admire. Right. So I have a piece that's inspired by Michelle Obama. I accent her hips. The hips are actually bigger than her hips, but Michelle, for her frame, has wide hips, and it's called Passionate. I have a piece that's inspired by Stacey Abrams, and it's called Resilient. And the background is actually a graph in red and white. The background is blue. The background is red, excuse me, the graph in blue and white. And it's resilient because, Stacey, her star went up, her star went down, it went up, it went down, it's going back up, but who knows where it's going to end. And so she's very resilient. And there are 8 pieces in that series. One was acquired by the Penn Center. It was inspired by Coretta Scott King. And she was, as you are fully aware, sort of the backbone. She was the quiet backbone behind Martin Luther King. And, she was a curvy lady in her own right. So I did a whole series of pieces about Black women. Actually, no, that's not true. One's Latino. One is Hawaiian. Right. So they're all women of different ethnic backgrounds. Oh, one Italian. But they are curvy women meant to inspire and let us know, no, we're not lazy, because that's what they think of us when they see, too lazy to exercise, too lazy to go out there and dedicate herself to getting healthy. That's not the case. And so that whole piece, and again, I have to send you some of the pictures of that so you can see yourself in one of them, because, oh yeah, they all got the curves.
That's awesome that you're transcending pretty much not only addressing colorism, but you're also addressing, how our bodies look. Because if we live in a time now with everything social media, people are so gun-ho on plastic surgery, which, I mean, if that's what you want, that's what you want. But at the end of the day, if you're not happy with yourself, no matter, that's, and
That's
so
right.
I have a little girl, and I'm trying to teach her about positive body image, because again, if that's something that you want to do, you can go ahead and go on, but sometimes people may do it to the extreme that is never good enough.
Right.
And that's when it becomes unhealthy.
And you can do anything in your body. Is another name, not a fiber artist, but someone in the Curvy Lady series, Kanoa Green. She is Hawaiian, mixed. I don't remember exactly what, but she has started a whole movement on plus size active lifestyles. She did her first, I remember, I guess right when I started that piece, so that had to be 2018. She did a plus size retreat for surfers, right? You want to learn how to surf, right? She helped you choose your active wear. What's the right wetsuit? She had to work with um, you know, manufacturers to create a wetsuit that actually worked on a plus size body,
Mhm.
right? She had to work with surfboard manufacturers to get a surfboard that would support our bodies, right? And then she had to get the world to accept the fact that we can. So now she does rock climbing, hill climbing, surfing, everything. She does all these retreats, and you have to be a certain size and over to come to her retreat.
Wow.
Be fit in the body you have. Your body is stronger than you think. And that's her whole, mantra. And she's a young woman. She hasn't even hit 30.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And she had Nike come to her, and she had to tell them no, because when she went to them about, I forgot what piece of athletic wear it was, they weren't interested. So
Mm,
she worked with someone else.
mm.
Wow.
And so when people ask me, so what type of artwork do you do, fiber? I say I do, representational, original artwork. The medium just happens to be fiber.
Well, you answered the other two questions, so we're down to. I'm like, I'm not gonna repeat it. Let's say, okay, advice and insight. What advice would you give to someone starting to become a fiber artist?
Create what you want to create. Do you? And I think this transcends just about any field. It's life. Do you? People will tell you you can't do this in fiber art. That's not, oh, quilters don't do that. We call them the quilt police. No, they don't exist. No one's going to come and lock you up because you left your edges raw, or your sides on perfectly straight, or you want a curvy top or bottom. No, if that's what you want, you do it. Too many times when we try to learn something new, we spend too much time worrying about what other people think and how other
Mm.
people think we should do it. So do you, number one. Number two, do you, but invest in yourself to learn how to do it correctly. Right? I'm not saying you have to follow the rules, not at all, but do it so that it is executed well. Right? And it takes time. When I first learned how to free motion quilt, the stitching that holds the 3 layers together, the woman whose work I admired said that it took her about 500 hours of practice before she felt one with her machine to be able to control it, to get the stitching that she wanted and the way she wanted it to look. Not the way somebody else wanted it to look, the way that she wanted it to look. And I will tell you, the 500 hours is pretty spot on. It took a lot of time so that I can control the machine and the fabric. And so I tell people, take the time and invest in you. Play, practice. Right? You don't always have to be making something, because just by playing, you're improving your skill.
I guess we're down to the last question. We always ask this. So we always ask everyone that comes on a feature because we know they're intertwined, what they do, that's their passion. But what are 3 words that you would describe your passion for fiber art, your artistry with it, and why would you choose these 3 words?
See, now it's funny. I was chuckling when I read the question there. I didn't see why. Okay, so I talk about my art as being a representational, as I said, because I believe that I want my art to show you who I am, right? Not just from imagery, but my life experiences, how things affect me. So I actually do believe in my work as representational. I also believe when I describe my work, to me, probably the most important part of the design process is the texture and movement. So you will see in my work um, where I spend a lot of time creating texture. So my work is full of movement. So that is a word that I use quite a bit to describe my art. And then the third word is colorful, because I'm all about the color. Right. You know, besides the African American in me from West Africa is all of the Caribbean. I have a Taino, Indian, Puerto Rican. And you know, I don't know, you probably again, you guys probably aren't old enough. You said you were raised in the 80s. Oh Lord. My kids' age, but you know, there used to be a joke about, you know, how many colors was a Puerto Rican going to wear because their clothes always had so many colors mixed together. And so my art is very bright. I use very few beiges, browns only in the skin tones, but I'm all about the color, so colorful.
Oh, you
Thank
did
you.
that perfectly.
I know. To say she didn't know why. Yes, you do know
Yeah,
why.
you had the why. You had the why.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, I guess that's true. You know, one of the things that I think fiber art has done for me personally is it has caused me to think about who I am and what is important to me. And so I've asked myself a lot of those hard questions, right? Why do I do what I do? It's why I stopped doing only skinny dances because it doesn't represent me, right? And it's also why my art is all different shades. I do white, black, brown, yellow, orange, green, you know, because I, well, I think just about everyone, you know, in today's world is mixed with something, right? It's all in there. Do your DNA, right? So yeah, I've stopped and asked, you know, myself quite a few, what's important to me, what I want people to see, and why is it important to me?
I think it's really neat that the fact that the vision that you depict, so many people can relate to it. Because when you were showing me the different projects that you've done, I could see something in all of those. If it wasn't in me, it was people that I knew, you know? And like I said, I think it's just great that you're sharing this with us. If,
Thank
you
you.
know, your son pushed you to do it.
I'm glad he did. I'm glad he did.
Yeah,
Wow.
and he's
That's
my
awesome.
youngest, so yeah, he's just that pushy type, but yeah.
He did a great job. He really did because wow. Because if he didn't push you, you know, you
I
never would have known your work could sell like that.
No, I
So
wouldn't. I would have been hanging it on the wall. Actually, I ask myself this question all the time. Would I still be creating? Because I'm going to tell you, my walls are pretty packed. So what do you do with it? You give some away as gifts, but there's a lot of time and effort. And quilting is I'll be honest, a very expensive hobby.
mhm.
So, you know, I think the answer is yes, just because, as I say, what it does for me, you know, the stress releaser. I sit up here in the studio, and my husband's like, "There's no movie on." You know, excuse me, no music. When we moved in, he put a TV up here. It has never been plugged in. We've been in this house for 5 years. I have
Wow.
never plugged the television in my studio. I don't need it. I have my fabric. I have my thoughts. I have my drawings. I'm good.
I have to
That's
ask this
awesome.
one question before we get off because it'd be inspiration. I don't know if we keep it, but it's inspiration for me. So do you do this full time now?
I want to say yes, but I like life a lot. So if you follow me on social media, I enjoy being out and about. When I'm home, yes, I am in my studio. Okay, yes, I gotta, wash the dishes and, clean, sweep the floor. But I don't, television has become a thing of the past. I really don't watch TV. I am up here creating.
Thank you again for sharing this, like these nuggets of wisdom. You just don't know. It's a blessing when people come on and do features with us because we're starting off small, but we've had, like I said, we've had the time of our lives on this journey, short journey.
Yes.
But we've been learning so much because people don't know it's a blessing to us too when we talk to people and hear about their journey. So thank you again.
You're quite welcome.
And I know your art form is going to take the world by storm because it's just like the pieces you showed me. I would go to exhibit and see that. I would.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'll let you guys know when the next one is.
As I say, any upcoming projects, let us know, please.
Akiba and I have started something called Excellence 365. And it's a residential art tour. So instead of having people go to the gallery and maybe like what they like and don't and see one artist, we're working with a collection of local, low country artists. And we actually bring art into people's homes and we have an evening of art, music and libations and art. And you get to see it in a home, right? So in the setting it's intended to be. There's mixed media, there's collage, there's paper, there's oil, there's watercolor, there's fiber, there's statues, sculpture work. So our next one is called Excellence 365 Linen and White. Oh, white linen, and it's July 13th. And we have it. I'm fortunate enough to have made enough friends who are willing to open up their homes to host us. So that's the next one. That's the next play. And then after that, you'll have the Global Art Fair hard launch. Akiba did the soft launch in May. But in October, there will be the Global Art Fair again, all mediums, spoken word, muscle car show, Gullah cuisine, natural hair, so panel. So yeah, we're starting to enjoy this.
That's something for everyone.
It went about like 3 boxes for me. I was like, oh,
right? I'm like, that's check. I like that.
Yes,
Like that.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
For everybody.
And finally, too, Nikki, before we leave, if we can ask a question about how our followers can reach.
All right. So you can find me on Instagram as Quilted Artistry. My name for Facebook, Renee Fleuranges-Valdes, and my website, quiltedartistrybyrenee.com.
Thank you again for coming on and trusting us to do this interview with you. And for anybody that's watching, this will be on YouTube. Again for coming on. And to everyone, have a great day.
All righty.
Bye.
Bye-bye.